BYD is surging. Record sales, high margins, and some fantastic revenue numbers. But what does it all mean? And should we be worried or should we be rejoicing? Let's discuss all of that and so much more. I'm Brian. Welcome to Futuraza. So there's big news out of China. BYD has shown that they have sold over 500,000 cars in the quarter or in the month of October for the first time. 500,000 in 1 month. That would be an annualized pace of 6 million cars. That's a whole lot. Now, not all of those are EVs. BYD started as a gasoline car manufacturer, and then they did hybrids, which they still do. But this is total volume for plug-ins, both electrified entirely as well as plug-in hybrids. So yeah, 500,526 in October, 66% up from the previous year and a 20% rise from the previous month. Let's look at that again. Here's October of last year. It's right about there-ish, right there. And that's a big jump, my friend. That is very big. The release data shows NEVs, China's term for plug-in hybrids, and BEVs. It technically includes hydrogen, but there is none. The sales are very strong, including commercial vehicles, even a little bit higher. So that's ridiculous. Here's the breakdown of BEVs to hybrids. And the ICE cars are down here because they don't make them anymore. They stopped in, I want to say, 2009-ish, somewhere around there. It's in the article. You can take a look. These are still very strong EV numbers. 180,000 for the quarter, or for the month of October. That's very strong. I've seen people saying, well, why does it matter? Tesla only sold record numbers because they released a Cybertruck. Well, BYD only sells so many because they've got so many models available. 189,000 all-electric vehicles, 38% of sales. Now, yes, that's down a year ago. The ratio was better. If we go back, we would see that last year the EVs were outselling the hybrids. But some of it has to do with who your market is. And if you don't have access to charging where you park, it may be a tougher sell. China is very good at centralizing power and making things happen that are mandatory, but that doesn't mean that there's going to be charging everywhere. So for those folks, this works. I get it. And even BYD could run into a battery crunch should they try to sell that many units all electric. Here we go. Since the plug-in hybrid sales surpassed BYD's lineup in February, hybrids continue to make up a larger share. And you can see, mostly passengers, vehicles, and then some commercial, very few. And then we've got the next story here, which is BYD quarterly net income in RMB, which is the Chinese renminbi, in millions. You can see the profit, the net revenue, the net income has gone up. That's substantial, 1.6 billion. They're at a positive margin. And it's not just on the backs of the hybrids. It's also on the electric vehicles because they are a substantial percentage. Quarterly revenue, very good, best ever. These are exciting numbers. BYD versus Tesla revenue, you can see that BYD surpassed Tesla's revenue, surpassed it, which is approximately a first. It looks like in Q4 of last year, they were a little bit higher maybe, but basically equal. This is a very inspiring chart for BYD. Like Tesla, BYD is very vertically integrated. Of course, they make their own batteries. They have designed and built their own motors. They design their own chips, but they don't manufacture them. They had tried to spin off the chip division. They could not find a buyer at the price they wanted. They kept it in-house. BYD's gross margin was almost 22%. That's amazing. These are fantastic margins. It means that they've got their manufacturing sorted out. It means that they can cut prices 10% and still have a larger gross margin than many auto manufacturers. It means that if you're going to compete against BYD, you need to rethink your manufacturing, because there's a lot here going on. And now, I had talked with Sandy Munro. This is 2 years ago. Well, it says a year ago, but it was maybe a year and a half ago. No, it's almost 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago, almost like a week ago. Maybe I uploaded it late. And I asked him, 10 years from now, in EVs, who's at the top? And I said, I'm going to guess you're going to say Tesla. He said, yeah, Tesla. I said, who's number 2? He said, BYD. They might even be number 1. I don't remember the conversation exactly, but he said BYD without a doubt, for the reasons we just discussed. They've got the vertical integration. They've got the money. They've got the factories. They've got the technology. They've got the R&D. They've got all the pieces they need to make it work. Link to this in the description. It was a great conversation on a variety of topics with timestamps. Yeah, I timestamped it so you could see what everything is about. So BYD, not a big surprise that they would be coming out ahead over and over. Tesla rival BYD doubles overseas sales, led by surge in Brazil. Now, I don't have this whole article because it's paywalled, and I am not going to be buying a subscription to Nikkei Asia. But we know this. The overseas sales are critical. You can do fantastic with just domestic sales, but you need to be global. And these cars have the right price points and the right margins. They can option them up for European sales. They can option them down for countries that are more budget conscious. But they are pretty good cars. They are competitive. It's, with gains in Brazil and Southeast Asia, offsetting setbacks in Europe. So it's something to be aware of. They're building a factory in Hungary, which is within the European Union. That should revitalize sales in Europe. That is something I would be worried about if I was their competition, which I am not. Tesla set to lose its EV crown again as BYD sales surge in October. 500,000 plus. So what does this mean? It means that there's a very strong likelihood that by the end of this year, BYD will once again claim, which they briefly did in Q4 of last year, the crown of biggest EV maker. That's amazing. The competition between the two companies is not as a Venn diagram goes, there's not a lot of overlap. Yes, Tesla competes in the China market, but BYD dominates. Yes, Tesla and BYD are in a lot of the same markets, but BYD is really not in North America. The import tariffs have made Canada essentially off limits, the US entirely off limits. There are BYD sales in Mexico. I've been down there to see the vehicles myself. They look good, but they're not being adopted widely. And a lot of people in Mexico, where I was, in Monterrey, didn't have adequate access to home charging to make them make sense just yet. All of that is pretty challenging, but not impossible. And a lot of countries want these cars. In some countries, like Brazil, hydropower is abundant and affordable, especially compared to gasoline. It makes sense in that market. Now, which company is the biggest? So let's take a look at that. We've got VW at the biggest. Now, this is car sales by revenue. If you're looking at revenue, because I've tried looking at this a number of different ways, the numbers, you get very inconsistent numbers and very different numbers and a lot of out-of-date numbers. Volkswagen, still the reigning champ. Now, this is as of last year, I believe, 2023. But you don't have to go down very far to find Tesla, and that number is definitely out of date. And BYD, I don't know if it's even on this list, which is very weird because it would be. It could be that they're having trouble assessing the value of it because so much of the company's business is selling batteries to other companies, including Tesla. So you see some of that going on. So should we be worried? Should we concern ourselves as Tesla investors as Tesla shareholders, that Tesla will fall into second place this year and never financially recover. Well, it depends on what the future is. BYD will still make batteries. They still make megapack style batteries. I made a whole video about that. They are still going to be moving forward, and they will push every aspect of technology as best they can. But I feel like Tesla might have a bit of an advantage when it comes to this little guy. Yeah, not the one in red. That's a mock-up. It's a cool mock-up, but a mock-up. This little guy is going to change everything. If Tesla can release this and be one of the first companies that do, none of the other things matter. This is a revenue time bomb. This is going to be huge. Is BYD working on something like this? Probably. Can they get it to market soon enough? Less clear. That part is definitely less clear. And I feel like there's one other thing I'm forgetting, and that's to tell you to like and subscribe. No, I'm kidding, but definitely do that as well. And if you wouldn't mind, leave your mandatory comment. No, it is Optimus. Optimus, if it delivers on its promise to be what we believe it's going to be, what we've been told it's going to be, Optimus will make the other business lines seem quaint. Optimus and Robotaxi, but really Optimus, could make it so that there's a time in the future when children are taught, did you know that Tesla started as a car company? Yeah, they made cars that you could drive yourself. Isn't that weird? That's the potential for how big this could be. Do you think, that's my question in the comments, do you guys think that BYD is going to surpass Tesla and keep itself in first place? And do you think it matters? Because they're really in different lines of work. What do we miss? What do we misunderstand? I'll leave it into them comments below and stay tuned and juicy. I cannot wait to hear from you clever robots on the next one.